It's great to be here to talk about some of the critical energy issues that we're facing today. One thing that Cole doesn't know, and I have some old friends here that did start my career at Entergy, the old Middle South, so it's good to see some old friends. Before I get into the real meaty issues about some of these big critical issues, cap and trade, whatnot, I do want to talk a little bit about our presence in Arkansas. I do have some people with me today I'd like to introduce. Paul Renfro, our Vice President of Public Affairs. In the middle, Rob Ratley, who's our Community Affairs Officer in Arkansas and is also chairs the Economic Development Committee for the Fort Smith Chamber. And Jean Leger in the back, who is our Vice President who runs the utility and is actually a graduate of the University of Arkansas. So you have infiltrated well. And he's glad to be here. OG&E, we're celebrating 108 years of successful operations. 90 years of that 108 we've been operating in the Fort Smith area. Also, I think from Delaney since I think it's 1937. I think we've been providing wholesale power, 100% requirements for Arkansas Valley Electric Cooperative. And so we have been here a long time and very pleased to be serving that area. With our Energex pipeline, we used to own the Ozark pipeline for many years till we sold several years ago, so we're very familiar with Arkansas. Fort Smith, a little bit about Fort Smith. Economically, we're just thrilled with what's going on there. It's probably one of our most vibrantly areas from an economic standpoint in our whole territory. We have seen a challenge. We've got residential commercial growth still in the area, but manufacturing sales were down 18% last year, and again, due to really two major situations. We have seen some rehiring, and so we are confident that as we're seeing in Oklahoma, that the decline is stabilized and we're starting to see some growth come back into that sector, so we're very happy about that. Fort Smith has seen a lot of economic development success. We're really happy to be proud of that. The Mitsubishi plant, again, was a great win for that region. Hundreds of jobs, $200 million in the first phase, I think $200 million in the second phase for turbine components for the wind market as well as blades. I could tell you that it seems like a pretty good relationship. Oklahoma has the wind and Arkansas is getting the manufacturing. But I can tell you Oklahoma doesn't see it that way. They're very jealous about that plant. And there are many reasons for that Fort Smith is doing so well from an economic development standpoint, one of which we think, and again, it's not the only factor, is the low energy rates, electric rates. Our rates in that area are 40% below the national average. We're 29% below the regional average and 23% below the state average. And we are very determined to maintain that position, but I can tell you we do face some formidable challenges of which you are aware. And no greater challenge to us in our cost structure is the global climate policies. Uncertainty clearly dominates our landscape at this point in time as we move towards policy as environmental / energy policy, which seems to be combined at this point, is really transitioning towards policies that tax, you would call it tax or penalize fossil fuels and promote clean energy. So I would like to share this morning with you our plans for success in this environment. And I define success or measure success not only by complying with policy goals, but also keeping our rates at levels that will continue to support economic growth in the areas we serve. With this backdrop, in late 2007, we announced a plan to defer the need for any additional fossil fuel generation until after the year 2020, aptly named the 2020 Plan. It's really a stark contrast, if you think about it, to what our traditional goals would have been to continue to grow our load and to build new generation plant. But the impetus back in 2007 was twofold, really to avoid the rate shock associated with the cost of new generation compared to the embedded cost of our generation that's in our rates today, and also the potential environmental liability associated with the global warming legislation. Those concerns and rationale are still valid today, as you would suspect. The cost of a power plant in the year 2000, if it cost $1 billion, would cost about $1.5 billion today. So it's still quite expensive for new cost of generation. Potential price impact for our customers, if you go back to the Waxman-Markey bill that passed the House of Representatives, that in the first year, again, depending on what you assume for allowances, the cost of allowances to emit CO2, the cost would be anywhere from 10 to 30% impact in 2012. So it's still a pretty large impact economically on our customers. So we have those concerns. Overall, considering these factors, we felt a pretty compelling case existed to defer any new fossil fuel plant needs for as long as possible. It just seemed to us that with all this transition taking place, that time would hopefully shake things out a little bit, and that building any plants in the near future is going to be a risky proposition that we hope to avoid. Our 2020 plan has three components. The first component was in 2008, we purchased a relatively new combined cycle natural gas plant from a hedge fund who was heading into some, I think, liquidity concerns. And we were able to buy that at 70% of the cost of building a new plant, and it was virtually brand new. So it's $700 per kW. It was a great economic purchase. We eliminated some power purchase agreements, but we also built in some capacity to be able to cover a couple of years' load growth, at least until our demand-side management policies can start to kick in, and I'll talk about those in a minute. The second part is expanding our transmission system to integrate more wind generation into our portfolio. Again, we see wind as a very economical hedge against higher natural gas prices, natural gas price volatility, national renewable portfolio standard, and also CO2 emission limits. We're fortunate that in Oklahoma, in western Oklahoma, the wind is very strong and it's steady. We have some of the highest capacity factors in the country and some of the most economic wind farms. New Era, which you may have heard of as the largest owner and operator of wind farms throughout the United States, told me the other day that their farm in Weatherford, Oklahoma has the highest capacity factors anywhere in the country, and they're in South Dakota and all over the state. So we're quite proud of that. We are currently providing wind generation-based kilowatt-hour sales in the Fort Smith area. We are planning to bring more to Oklahoma, subject to the approval of the Arkansas Public Service Commission. That wind farm, and I hope this doesn't influence the Arkansas Public Service Commission, but the wind farm's named OU Spirit. So, please don't have that against us. But the University of Oklahoma did sign a long-term contract before it was completed that helped us develop that project to buy all the renewable energy credits. And so that in the year 2013, 100% of their electrical energy will be covered by the renewable energy credits from that plant. And third, what I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about today is the deployment of our positive energy smart grid that Cole referenced in her introductory comments. And that smart grid's a platform for several things, but what I'm going to concentrate on is our demand-side management programs, which are targeting energy efficiency and demand response. Our goal through these programs is to reduce our demand, defer really the need for two combined cycle plants, and actually 300 to 400 megawatts through 2020 is what we're looking to defer through these measures. With our load growing at about 90 megawatts a year, every year's up and down a little bit depending on weather, our opinion, we can only achieve these demand-side management goals if we, in fact, use technology-enhanced offerings based on smart meter-based home area networks. And there are really two parts of our program, the home area networks that I'll talk about and you'll see a video about. And to a lesser extent, it's reactive and voltage control investments in our system. For our planning purposes, to reach that 300 megawatts, we've assumed a 20% penetration rate with our customers, and that the customers would reduce their demand by about 1.3 kilowatt hours for each customer participating. If we can move that penetration rate and get 30% of our customers involved in this program on a voluntary basis, we can move out of the need for additional power plant by another 3 or 4 years. So you can see how critical those assumptions are. Our past experience with residential load demand-side programs really showed that direct load control programs do not achieve the desired results. In our opinion, control needs to be in the hands of the customers and not ours. And that really we're talking about here is, whether you're getting yelled at from the back or the front of the house, we're really trying to change customer behavior on how they use their energy. And we're looking to do that through price transparency. So with that in mind, several years ago, keeping in mind that our deadline of meeting our demand-side management goals, we said we really need to figure out how effective this technology-enhanced programs are. And we collaborated with General Electric, Honeywell, Silver Springs Network on a technology demonstration project where we put in 6,600 smart meters and only 25 home area networks. These home area networks are really not available. They're not deployed anywhere. And so this was probably one of the first time that any of these networks have been put in place. And what these networks consisted of is an in-home touchscreen information display, a communicating programmable thermostat, and also a web interface. So you can get on and get much more detailed information on your consumption. We provided also pricing signals, time of use pricing signals. It was a scheme to really economic reward these customers for changing their consumption patterns and really to move them off the peak. Off peak, we had charged prices of 3 cents per kilowatt hour for residential, up to 46 cents if they were using electricity at critical peak time. So you can see quite a differential. And we were very encouraged by the results and looking at what these customers did, how they responded to the price signals. They were switching out pool pumps to put in more efficient pool pumps, putting on timers, using CFLs, replacing their light bulbs, cycling off their air conditioning, changing when they did their wash, things of that nature, with the end result that these customers reduced their bill by 10 to 12% over the summer. And we, as in Arkansas, our load is the heaviest, the highest in the summer. So we were very pleased with that. In addition, when you look at the things they did to improve not just load shifting, but their energy efficiency, we estimate that there may be another 10% of savings. So in total, 15 to 20% savings associated with this program. So that can be significant. And I'm going to ask if we could show this clip. You may have to hit the lights a little bit, but General Electric was our partner in this, and they really, since this was one of the leading programs, they came in and made a video of this and put it on their Super Bowl last year and their advertising on that website. You can get on and click it. It's not there anymore, but why don't you go ahead and roll that. I think you'll enjoy hearing from our customers directly who participated in that pilot.
What would the world look like if we continued to increase electric demand at the rate we have been for the last 10 years? With the environmental issues and with the volatility of fuel prices, we're going to have to work from the customer side to solve a lot of these problems. They have to understand how it's going to improve their lives and how it's going to help them be a part of the solution. Smart grid had the potential to change the relationship that we have with our customers.
It's one thing to go out and look at the meter and watch it spin in kilowatt hours. It's something else to watch the dollar sign spin inside your house.
And it was interesting to me to be able to see on that little display what difference it made.
One thing that happened too is that our grandkids got involved. As we watched the dollars click by, they started paying attention as well. When do I spend the most money?
Off-peak.
Pretty cool.
It showed us on the weekends that power is cheaper, so that makes a big difference.
We started working with GE to better understand smart grid technology. We're using the GE smart meters in our project. We have 6,600 meters deployed in the field that allows communication between the meters and into the home.
The meter we're looking at here is technology that's been built on for over the past 100 years. But the new GE smart meter brings us into a new evolution of metering. Having this network system, we can get the reads remotely without sending anybody out to the meter. The registers on the meter actually show a consumption register that gives the customer information inside the home.
I was spending almost $200 a month for electric for a two-bedroom apartment. The last bill I paid, which was last month, was $97.
Are you serious? Cool. That's $100 we saved.
I actually could see how much money was being spent a day. We were able to adjust how the air conditioner was ran, start turning more lights off.
And actually,
And I never thought about it, you know, just turn the air conditioner
yeah,
on.
that's what I was about to say. Actually, I never really thought about it. And even just little simple stuff like unplugging the toaster because it actually sucks. We didn't know that either. It sucks power out even though you're not using it. I think that's the good thing about it. It makes you pay attention.
When we did the installation, you didn't have any of the new technology programmable controls, is that right?
That's correct.
Did you have any problems converting, making that transition?
No, it's simple.
We really got into it. When we could see what it was costing us on that meter, you're very much motivated to make a difference.
If you can use your current generating capacity, it's better for the environment, it's better for the customers, and it's the cheapest way to go.
Yesterday, we send the customer a bill. Now we give the customer tools to make intelligent choices. That's really powerful when people can understand that there's really positive changes that are coming.
Encouraged by the results we saw at that pilot, and you saw some of the customers. I think that one guy and his wife, he started a slush fund, obviously, that she just found out about during that interview. So I hope they're still married. But, you know, these customers, and again, this was a small subset, and we'll get to what our current plans are to ramp this up, is that they were all of them were very skeptical. They weren't eager to go out and participate. They really didn't believe they were going to get a lot of benefits. And again, they were able to see 10 to 12% savings just from load shifting. And again, at the end, the other thing is our relationship with the customer totally changed. They really loved the technology. The customer satisfaction went through the roof. And they were very engaged, which is what we're trying to do, is get people engaged and not have to wait to get yelled at to turn off the lights. But it just shows you the power of price transparency, really, because they can do all those things that they did during the pilot, they can do today. I mean, there's nothing there. If they spent the $300-400 to put in a programmable thermostat, they could do that as well. And so they're just not getting the price signals that incentivize them or the pricing structures to behave accordingly. So it really told us that we were going around the right path. We need to really accelerate it, and we need to statistically go out and prove these results that we have. And so we have embarked on a 45,000 smart meter deployment and a 2,200 to 2,400 home area network deployment in Norman, Oklahoma. Which really has a good cross-section of types of customers that we want to test out. And we did get, with the support of the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, gave us pre-approval. And our objectives, again, are to validate the results, to validate the operational customer benefits, as well as develop our competencies in managing this type of systems, since they don't exist today. The smart meter, in terms of smart meters being installed, and you hear around the country, and many of the larger utilities are putting in hundreds of thousands of smart meters, but nobody's putting in home area networks. So while our 45,000 smart meters next year we'll have in by May, and we're going to continue on with that deployment, is small. I don't think anywhere you'll see a home area network deployment by next May of the one that we're trying to do. And again, given our 2020 time frame to save 300 megawatts and defer 300 megawatts of load, it was clear that we really needed to engage our customers as early as possible. And so that's why we are taking a little bit different approach. And as we're installing the smart meters, we're also going down the area of developing our home area networks. The disadvantage, of course, with this type of deployment is that the home area networks have not been done before. There's new configurations, new software, and a host of issues that we have to figure out and do it as we're out there deploying it, and worry about cybersecurity and other critical issues that we have with these types of systems. But again, the home area networks just really the equipment part of the enabler part of our effort. But I want to talk about education is very appropriate, is very important, and developing the appropriate products and pricing and whatnot to get them engaged is going to be really important. Sometimes, when you're, if you in your equation, the humans really sometimes either the ball bounces your way and sometimes it doesn't. Recently, it bounced our way when we announced our 2020. Said that we could defer if we partner with you, if we could defer a plant. It really engaged what we found. It really engaged our customers to participate because they have connected their individual acts with deferring a power plant, and that really seemed to give them empowerment. The other thing that bounced away from this, we are weatherizing low-income homes, very low-income homes, and we found in some cases electric usage going up. And that was sort of we didn't anticipate, and that's because now with the insulation we have, actually they're seeing the benefit of comfort. The house is actually getting cooler or hotter, and they're saying, boy, I sort of like this, let's make it even cooler, and they're usually using more energy. So sometimes when we're trying to figure this out and anticipate in human behavior, it's quite difficult. But we're in the elementary schools. We have a LivingWise kit that we've now got in part of the 5th and 6th grade science and math curriculum, requiring homework, requiring parental engagement. So we'll be able to hit that generation as well. We're collaborating with universities promoting renewables, our wind power, and wise energy practices. We're using traditional media channels quite extensively, as well as the new social medias to get that group. We were very excited to the Department of Energy. We put in a grant, part of that $3.4 billion smart grid stimulus package, and we were awarded $130 million, which was the 10th largest award. And so we're very excited about that. And that work we started in Norman was before we got that grant. We are now accelerating with a 3-year deployment system-wide. That money is from the Department of Energy is not for Oklahoma or not for Arkansas. It's for everybody we serve. And so we will be coming before the Arkansas Public Service Commission asking for recovery of the cost, because we would like to deploy our smart meters and the home area networks in our Fort Smith area that we serve. A little bit about moving forward in this type of, when you're dealing with this type of products and technology, and the fact that if we have new problems or challenges, they never go away, they just change in their form. We can't continue to address them with past solutions, and I think we need, in my opinion, a more collaborative regulatory approach as well. More than just the historical after-effect review that you come in after you've made your investment and try to get recovery. One collaboration tool we've used in Oklahoma with a lot of great success is the pre-approval, which the pre-approval filing, we have an open vetting of all the risks and all the business issues, and to us it makes good sense. I think the regulation needs to go beyond that, though. It needs to really encourage new approaches and new technology deployment. We all need to realize up front, though, that when you're doing this, you're not always going to get the hoped-for results. But we have, and utilities clearly have a role to play in development of technology, particularly in the form of conducting pilots to be able to bring some of these solutions out of the laboratory into the commercial markets, and time is of the essence. So we hope to work with the Arkansas Public Service Commission and other stakeholders to be able to move forward in critical areas in this fashion. But one other point before I close about the importance of the U.S. It's really about the importance of the U.S. investing in all power technologies, just not smart grid, just not clean energy, but energy, storage, coal, carbon capture and sequestration, and nuclear power. And I went back and I talked about our 2020 plan. We have, assume our 2020 plan is successful. So we have not brought on any new fossil power plants until after 2020. We don't have a need. We have 1,400 megawatts of wind in our system associated with an RPS. And we have reduced our peak demand by 5%, or by 300 megawatts. So that's been great. And then you take that and put on top that we've taken all of our coal plants, and we're now converted all of them to natural gas. And at that point, 5 years after 2020 and 2024, actually 4 to 5 years, we cannot meet the CO2 emissions targets under Waxman-Markey, the physical hard cap emission, or not the hard cap, but the physical emissions limit. So it shows you with all wind and natural gas, we cannot meet the targets. So in our situation, and I think you can look around, unless you have a lot of nuclear in your fleet today, all these utilities are going to be in the same situation. We're going to need nuclear power, or we're going to need carbon capture, or technology available, or we're going to need even to reduce our demand even more. We're going to need more penetration rates, and I think we're pretty aggressive at what we're assuming on that stamp front. So 2025, it may seem pretty far away to you. It doesn't to me, because one, you consider what it takes if you want to get a nuclear power plant into operations, 10 years or so for permitting, licensing, construction, carbon capture, sequestration, some positive results I saw AEP talked about recently in their project, but that technology is really in the small pilot stage, and it takes years to bring that up to full scale, and we're just not sure of the cost. And our demand side programs, as talked about, takes years to deploy, because you are talking about changing customer behaviors. So if we're going to be able to meet our caps and meet these global climate issues, and also if we're going to continue to provide energy prices to our customers that support economic development, we're going to need all of these technologies as options. We can't just focus and think we're going to get there through clean energy technology. We don't think we can. And some say the next generation, the standard of living of the next generation is going to be lower than the previous. And I'm not quite that pessimistic, but that's not the type of legacy we'd like to lead. We don't want to repeat. We shouldn't repeat our past mistakes, which has led us to the present situation where we have ceded leadership in technology. If you want to look at nuclear technology, we have ceded leadership in that, and we'll be importing that technology in the future. Energy, as you know, is a strategic asset for this country. It's and leadership in power generation technologies is a really vital component of our economic and national security. So we need it all to meet all these challenges that we have on the global front. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
At all about the beneficial qualities of natural gas as a primary basis, if not supplement, to the new. Gas is noted constantly, and right. And I guess the drilling practices are at least worth asking about. But as far as its cleanliness, can you give us any specifics?
Sure. Of the things that have occurred in the last 5 years, natural gas is one of the few things that seems to have bounced towards the positive on the energy front, because, and again, Oklahoma, probably the third largest natural gas exporting state, and we have you have the Fayetteville Shale in Arkansas, and we've got our shale plays, unconventional plays in Oklahoma. And we have a pipeline company that does a lot of the gathering, and the success they're having in improving out the reserves is tremendous, and we're seeing large supplies available. So from a generation standpoint, we do seem to have a lot of natural gas domestic supply. So we believe going forward that the price volatility be less. We shouldn't hit the types of high prices that we have. From our portfolio standpoint, natural gas, as you know, from an environmental standpoint, CO2 emits half of what coal does per ton. So that's a benefit. It's not enough to get us where the goals in the House of Representatives legislation is. It works well in our system, and we have a lot of gas in our system. Our last plant was gas, and if we had to, you know, we're not going to do anything until after 2020, but it would probably be natural gas. Because of the wind that we're looking to bring on, natural gas can ramp up very quickly. Now, the coal plant cannot, and so it can load follow very well the variability of our wind. And we have a lot of gas, and so we can bring on a lot more wind without having to worry about gas. So from our standpoint, natural gas as a fuel has a lot of attractiveness to us. And I think you'll see in the industry a lot more of natural gas being used.
Right up here.
In addition to working with customers on reducing demand, do you also work with companies to provide the customers with more energy efficient things? Like I live in an area where the heating and cooling supplier just delivers really inefficient systems. And I don't know if you need to work with landlords or with those companies, or do you do any of that?
Yeah, we do. One thing we're working, pushing hard and helping support research is geothermal heating systems that work very well and have very good environmental qualities. We're working, you know, with Habitat for Humanity in the homes. You know, we work with, you know, heating and air conditioning to try to more efficient systems. So we do work with that part. It's very helpful, though, to also have the government increase the standards, the efficiency standards on the appliances. It's very helpful, but of course, you know, that it takes capital investment, and that's the biggest hurdle to getting people to really upgrade to new efficient systems.
Got a question back here. Mahmoud.
My name is Mahmoud. I'm a student here at the Clinton School. I thank you, Mr. Peter Delaney, for your time. My question is, in these times, we all have to make tough decisions with the economic times we face. You as a CEO, what is the toughest decision that you have to make?
The toughest decision I have to make? I don't know what the toughest decision I have to make. I mean, some of the tough decisions I was talking about today is where, you know, where are we going to invest from a power supplies, how are we going to meet the load that continues to grow. We see out there. I mean, we've got, you know, the electrification of our lives continues with all the devices that are coming out. We have the electric car market, which we're pretty excited about from a standpoint of moving the transportation sector off of oil, natural gasoline, especially if you can use wind at night to charge the vehicles. But the global, you know, impact on our customer is what we're trying to figure out. Regional haze, I know that's an issue here in Arkansas. We, for 4 scrubbers for our coal plants or unscrubbed, over $1 billion. It would be the largest rate increase in the history of our company. We don't want to invest $1 billion in our coal plants right now. They're 30 years old with CO2 legislation out there. At the same time, I think you have the EPA, who we will be having discussions with, who's sort of pushing us towards scrubbers. And I think, you know, they're missing the big picture. And so right now, in the short term, it's probably that issue around scrubbers, around coal plants. We have an alternative plan where we want to burn more natural gas and reach the same place and defer any type of investment of that size. But those are the type of issues. That one in particular is probably the most troublesome.
Sir, you just said 30-year-old plants. Energy just asked for scrubbers for their 30-year-old plant at White Bluff. I understand they are limiting the production of the gas plant in El Dorado, saying, well, I don't know what they're saying, but they won't let them produce the gas. Can you give us a price per kilowatt hour of gas production? You said 46 cents an hour for peak production. I mean, 46 cents per kilowatt hour. And can you tell us the price per kilowatt hour of wind generated, coal generated, and gas generated?
Well, you had a bunch of things bedded in there, but I'll try to do my best. One, Entergy has a much different portfolio than we do with a nuclear portfolio. So whereas we may take, in our coal plants, you have to scrub them to actually get the CO2. So if you're ever going to put carbon capture on, you have to scrub them first. Entergy, with their portfolio, they may have a different strategy, and doesn't mean either one of us are wrong. I think it's just where we are. Wind, wind prices, turbines have come down. We've had with everything I talked about, that escalation we had between 2000 and 2007, hit wind, natural gas plants, coal plants, everything, nuclear power plants, that there's sort of a glut in the turbine market. It's a very good time to bring on new wind. At those prices, assuming CO2 emissions, at anywhere from $5 natural gas, our wind is in the money. So it's economic for our customers. So, that's pretty good value for our customers. That 46 cents was really pricing at the critical peak that we're trying to really get people off of. It's not really perhaps matching the cost of our generation at that moment.
Lady in the red rack here had a question. If you'll wait for the microphone.
Thanks for being here and speaking with us today, and I want to thank your company for your work in weatherization and energy efficiency programs. But my question was about smart meters and the home area networks, because it relies so heavily on customer behavior. Has there been anything proposed in the design for the deployment that would take a look at those folks who may not have adjustable thermostats, or who may be home during the day, such as the elderly or disabled folks, mothers with young children, who may not be able to adjust their behavior to benefit from the savings, yet they'll be paying the cost of the installations?
No. What we're doing right now is, because we're just in the beginning, we're just trying to take, right now with our pilot in Norman with a bit bigger rollout, we're studying which combination of, whether it's the programmable thermostat, whether it's the web interface, whether it's the home information, home display that sits on your counter, what combination impacts their behavior the most. So at this point, we're such at the beginning that we're trying to get your lowest hanging fruit, your best economics. So getting your people who are out there probably able to engage at this point in time. I think later, then we'll have to look at special cases. But really, we're such at the beginning of this, really trying to verify our best case scenario, that we're not down to those sort of special situations. That will have to be done and should be done. It's just we're not at that point.
We have a question right back here.
Yes, thank you, sir, for being here today. 2 questions. First being energy audits. Do you guys have an energy audit program, and can you talk a little bit about that? And secondly, smart grid, you just received a big part of the stimulus fund, or some of the stimulus fund. Can you talk about some details on exactly what you're planning to do with that? And is that just necessarily putting up smart meters in the home, or are you also going to provide the same tools that you used in the pilot in Norman? And then also maybe a little bit about how you are going to actually connect to all these meters. What kind of networking are you going to use?
On the smart grid, what we're planning on the DOE, on the grant, which we have not, I don't know if any utility yet has completed negotiations. So we're assuming that we will have the funds. Once you get awarded, you have to go through negotiation and with the contracting officers and negotiate a contract. It will provide for funding of really certain equipment. It's capital only, and it'll have to fall within a certain definition to be financed. And we have a 3-year deployment. We filed a whole 3-year deployment plan with the DOE as part of the grant. And when you look at that, 771,000 smart meters. And from a home area network, it's around 45,000 home area networks. And again, you won't have every home. And again, we have 775,000 customers, but home area networks really for residential. And so that's the type of the size that we're looking at, and that's where the money will be scoped. As you will have the challenge, we're using GE meters, smart meters, so we're going to be putting in those. The home area networks really on a The smart meter allows us to do distributed automation, a lot of things from the utility side up to the meter. The home area network obviously gets you into the house, and that's really the basis for our demand response. We're using Silver Springs networks, the access points where you saw that picture of in the video. It was like on a street light, and that will be backhaul information back to the company, which will be all that information that will be contacted directly to your programmable thermostats when your devices in the homes. It'll pick up any sensors. We can use it in homes, or the CEO of that company was talking to me about a bridge. One of the cities, San Francisco, I think, is looking for putting bridge sensors in there for corrosion and try to use that system to backhaul that information. And so that's the system we're using. Then the information will be just a web interface, internet protocol, to get the information to the customer on the web. And again, we put all those with the same partners in our pilot we did in 2007, and we got it to work, but it was only for 25 customers. Now we're going for 2,400, but it's the payoff we think is there once we get through that. What was your first part of that question? Yes, we do. We do have an energy audit program, and it's going. We need to automate that more, but I filled it out myself, and you fill it out online, and you'll get a report back of what you can do in your home. We're looking to really try to upgrade that tool. Again, it's about awareness and education. It's so important. Nobody's really using. They can get a lot more value out of what they're doing if they would change some things here and there than they are today.
Got a question right here.
As we face the challenge of trying to find clean energy that's affordable and also that's available, for a long time we had a mindset that we were so afraid of nuclear energy because of the waste. We didn't know what was going to happen to the waste from the nuclear plants. Has that mindset changed to the point that it can now be on an equal basis as a source? How afraid are we, the engaged customers, with that old fear? It may still be the new fear.
Well, I don't know if I'm the right way I'm the right person to address where the mindset's changed. Since we don't own any, Entergy probably do a better job. They're much more involved in that. Just following the press. The environmentalists are in a tricky situation, and hopefully they'll get behind nuclear. Is probably if we're serious about CO2. If I showed by our example, if we're 100% natural gas and wind, 20% wind, 80% natural gas, we can't get there, and by 2025 to reduce the CO2 reductions 30% by then, and that's about when we hit the wall. And so we'll need. I don't know how we do it without nuclear power being part of the equation. And so it really needs to be. So I hope that mindset does change, and I hope administration gets behind it and figure out a way so we can do it cheaper. I know Japan's got 4 Generation 3 reactors operating and 4 under construction. We'd like to see some of that develop, that technology here in this country.
Question.
Yeah, I have a question. You talked about the Living Wise program that you have in the schools in Oklahoma for the fifth and 6th grade math and science curriculum. Could you expand a little bit more on that and who you approached to get that started?
Yeah, and Paul may, that's under Paul's area, and there's a game company we work with. I don't know what name and it's a game. Do you remember the game company? But anyway, and it's got low flow shower heads. It's more than that because water, and I didn't talk about water. Water, as you know, is a big issue, and a lot of electric usage is it's impacted by water consumption, and so we're also trying to deal with the water issue. But it's things to show them how much they can save. Go home and you do these various things in your home and measure the savings, and it gives you some tools to measure savings. and things of that nature, and they have to come back and report on it. So it's interactive, and it gets the parents involved, so the parents learn as well. Because we think about smoking and seat belts, and you think about the period of time it took to change behavior in terms of seat belts. You know, and for us, at that age who grew up, none of us wore, they weren't even in cars. And then when we had to have them in cars, we didn't wear them, and they had the cars that forced you to put them. No one would buy those cars, but it takes years to change that behavior. And so, unfortunately, we think that's, you know, hopefully it's not like, doesn't take as long as seat belts, but that's what we think you need you got to get in the schools, you got to get there early, and change those types of behaviors, values.
Let's get the microphone, please.
Thank you.
I wondered, what could the federal government do that would be the most important move it could make to help curb energy usage in the United States? I know cap and trade is on the table, but I'm asking you as the head of an energy company, what would be the most helpful thing that in the way of incentives or legislation that doesn't maybe get viewed as positive incentives, but what kind of incentives would be the most important right now? And I want to pair that just with an observation from some reading I've been doing that says that voluntary controls in education are not enough. We're not going to change the tipping point fast enough. So what would be the most helpful for the federal government?
Well, you know, we think the direct control, we haven't had success with that. I mean, they tried that in California even. People do not want utilities determining how they're going to control their energy usage. And so we don't think there's another path except voluntary control. You know, Americans aren't going to allow central control of their homes. I mean, that's, I think, period. So we have to go down the voluntary road. That's why we think you need to really have a technology-enabled approach to give them those tools where they can really see the price transparency, and that'll really change your behavior. I would think whether it's from energy efficiency standpoint, since we, you know, are really, you know, a country that functions on capitalism and earning returns for shareholders, probably one of the most powerful things you can do is incentives for energy efficiency. Balanced incentives, though, because you have to, you know, overall, we look at what's the lowest cost we can, you know, meet our goals with less impact on customers. So I think incentives to get people to invest, you know, invest in technology is how we're going to solve the solutions, obviously through technology. We don't have the technology today to do everything we need to do. And so I think what the government could do is invest in these technologies. There is money going into, you know, a smart grid, the stimulus. It's not a lot of money. Clean energy, you know, Japan, South Korea, and China are outspending us 4-1 on clean energy technology. We probably need more. We need more investment and we need more support for technology.
Pete, before we conclude the program, I've got a question for you. Today, Exxon announced a $31 billion purchase of a natural gas company, XTO, I believe, in Texas.
XTO?
Yeah. And it has put a lot of other companies in play in terms of share prices going up. It's a huge, not to get into the specifics of the deal, but which obviously you probably don't know. But what's the implication of that, of ExxonMobil buying XTO and what do you think how does that change the equation?
Yeah, that's big news. XTO is pretty big. That's, you know, domestic gatherer. I'm glad you didn't say it was Devon Energy or Chesapeake, which is based in Oklahoma City. You know, I think there's been a lot of speculation that given the amount of natural gas, given the future of natural gas as a solution, given the difficulties they're having in oil, finding enough to reinvest their dollars in good oil returns. You know, they're getting shut out of a lot of the U.S. companies are getting shut out of a lot of where the oil reserves are in the world. that with natural gas, with all the uses, with all the source that's out there, that they may step into that. More consolidation, you know, not a lack of investment for natural gas infrastructure. I think it just sort of confirms the view that natural gas has a very positive future, or they wouldn't be making that investment.
You think ExxonMobil will be buying more? I mean, you think there'll be more deals like this?
Well, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if the economic case exists for them to do it. Others have been. I mean, we know they've been looking at these big independents for years. When I talked to the independents and talked to their CEOs, they said that the culture is so different, that they believe that the majors know better that they will lose value because of the cultures of these independents are much different than the majors, and that the majors don't have the culture that will allow them to be successful in what they do. That's their viewpoint. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Delaney, let's thank him for being here.